Alright, so now that all of these LEDs have been soldered into place, it's time to mount the ceramic 0.1 microfarad and the electrolytic 22 microfarad capacitors. So if you look at the PCB, you'll see a plus and minus mark again. So we're going to go ahead and start with the 0.1 microfarad, and I'm just going to place it right here. Okay, and then take the 22 microfarad capacitor here, and we're going to mount it from the reverse side. So once again, we'll have the long wire go with the plus and the short wire go with the minus. So, just like so. Just like that. So we have the minus and the plus. And now just flip this over and solder these into place. So now the right chin piece is done. The last thing you need to do is just tin these pads so that it'll be easy to solder to them. So to do this, just take your soldering iron, take your solder, touch a soldering iron to the pad, and apply a little bit of solder. So it becomes, so it looks kind of like this. There's a slight dome shape to it. So yeah, do that to all of these pads. Alright, and now the right chin piece is 100% done. All we need to do is just connect the ribbon cable here. So I'm going to set this aside, start working on the left chin piece, which is pretty much the same thing as the right chin piece, just mirrored. So yeah. So again, first you want to mount the MAX 7219 chip, and again, it faces the resistors here. So the notch and the chip faces the resistors on the opposite side. So if I have my chip here, I have a notch here, so I'm going to go ahead and flip it over, and it's going to go like this. So like this, with the notch facing where the resistors should be, on the opposite side of the board. So you should have something like that. If you flip it over, chances are, well, not chances are, 100% guaranteed it won't work. So just make sure you line up the chip correctly. And then I'm going to go ahead and solder these. And now we're going to take our 47 k ohm resistors, and we're going to place them right here. And we're going to go ahead and solder these into place. Now we're going to go ahead and populate these and then these, just like we did on the right chin piece. And now we're going to flip this over and solder these all into place. So now that all these are soldered, I'm going to go ahead and trim all these leads off. And now it's time to populate all the rectangular LEDs. And again, to mount these, the longer leg goes on this side and the shorter leg goes on the side of the stripe. So just like that. Grab these LEDs and bend these leads down, solder and trim them. Alright, so I've went ahead and populated the top two rows. I'm going to go ahead and stop the video again and pick up when all these LEDs have been placed and soldered. So all these LEDs have been soldered, and one of the very last things to do is just mount the capacitors here and then tin these pads. So I'm going to go ahead and take the 0.1 microfarad, just place it here, bend the leads, and then again I'm going to take the 22 microfarad, I'm going to take the long long lead, I'm going to put it in the plus. The short lead, put it in the minus. Again, we're going to mount this on the opposite side. So just like that, I'm going to go ahead and solder these into place. Okay, and then we're going to tin these pads. This board is pretty much done, but let me show you guys how to line up all these LEDs. You can see that they're all kind of crooked and out of shape. So if you really want it to look really nice, you should probably do this. So take your soldering iron, pick an LED. I'm going to go start with this one. So take your soldering iron and go ahead and touch it to the solder pads. So, like so. Melt the solder and push the LED into place. You can see that some of the leads came out, but that's okay, you could trim those up later. So go ahead and do that for all the LEDs that are really out of shape. And yeah. And then we're going to go ahead and connect all these boards together, including these two. So I'm going to stop the video, line all these LEDs up so that they're nice and even, and pick up from there. Also, you might want to tin all of these pads on the left ear and on the right ear. So we're going to start by connecting the left ear to the right ear. So to do this, you need to take your flat 50 conductor cable and break off 6 wires, about 2 feet in length. Take this wire, split it up in sections, and then take off all the insulation. About 1/8 of an inch should be good. So do that on both sides. So once you have that, we're going to solder one side to this board and the other to this. You have to connect number 1 here to number 1 there, number 2 here to number 2 there, and all the way through number 6 to number 6. So make sure you solder one, and then make sure you solder the other one exactly to connect number 1 to number 1 through number 6 to number 6. If you don't do that, this right ear will not work. So make sure to connect 1 to 1, 2 to 2, etc. I'll post a diagram of all the connections you need to make. So this is what you should have as a result of soldering one side to the left ear. And now I'm going to go ahead and solder the right ear. Alright, so now the left ear and the right ear are connected together. I went ahead and connected number 1 to number 1 here, all the way through number 6 here to number 6 there. So now what's left to do is connect this left ear to both the right and left chin pieces. So in order to do that, you'll need two individual cables of 5 wires each and about 2 feet in long each. So go ahead and take your conductor cable here, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Break off 5, and then break off another 5, and take about a 2 foot long section of each. Now that we have 2 cables, 5 conductors each, 2 feet in length each, we're going to go ahead and trim about a 1/4 inch. We're going to strip about a 1/4 inch of insulation off one side and about 1/8 of an inch off the other side. You'll see why in a moment. So now we're going to take the 1/4 inch stripped wire side, and we're going to go ahead and connect these 2 sets together. To just take 2 wires, put them together, and just twist them together. And then do the next pair, and then the next pair, until you have all of them connected. Alright, once you have all these wires twisted together, we're going to go ahead and just apply a little bit of solder to each wire to keep them from coming apart. Just tin these wires. So to do this, take your soldering iron, take your solder, touch your soldering iron to the wire, and apply some solder. And you're done with that wire. Do that to the rest of them. Now these 5 wires are connected to each other and soldered together. So now we're going to go ahead and trim them down to about 1/8 of an inch in length. Just like so. The length doesn't have to be exact, but you probably want to keep it about that short. That's probably optimum. Alright. So we're going to take these wires and we're going to connect them to these 5 pads here. 5 wires, 5 pads, one wire per pad. So I probably should have shown this before, but to connect wires to these tin pads, all you need to do is just take your wire, put it where it needs to go, and just touch it with a soldering iron. And just like that, that wire is soldered down. And now solder the rest of these wires. Do make an effort to keep these in order, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so that it is easier to perhaps debug later, and so you know which wire goes to what on the other end of this. These wires are soldered down, and now since we have 2 ends of wires, so we have 1 wire, we have another one, we're going to connect each one of these to a board. So this wire will go to this board and that wire to that board. But the thing to note is that these pads are marked. You can't see the markings under the wires, but there are markings, there are letters under these wires, and you have to connect each of these wires to one of these pads. So this is the G pad, this is the V pad, and then we have the C, the A, and the B. So you want to go ahead and connect this straight to that to that, and yeah, so do that on both boards. That's one connected, and now to connect the other one. And again, just double check that this goes straight. Double check that this goes straight to that, this goes straight to that, and all the way to this pad going straight to this pad. So all these should be connected.